Runners, you're probably underfueling. If you're feeling sluggish on your runs, stuck at the same pace, or randomly craving sweets, there's a good chance you're not eating enough carbs, and that's wrecking your performance. So, I'm Dr. Ray Peralta, physical therapist and run coach, and I also have a master's in exercise physiology. And over the past 10 years, I've helped hundreds of runners hit PRs, avoid injuries by optimizing their training and their fueling. So, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how many carbs marathon runners need every day, and I'll bust 5 of the most common myths holding runners back from eating enough. First, I'll give you a quick overview of why carbs are crucial, not optional for runners. I'm going to break down 5 common myths I hear runners every week. And finally, I'll show you how to calculate your own daily carbs step by step. So if you're serious about running stronger and staying injury-free, check out my free training. I'll link in the description. I help dozens of runners just like you train smarter without burning out. So why do carbs matter for runners? So according to research, athletes just don't eat enough carbs, or just don't eat enough in general, right? So those who don't eat enough lead to what's called like relative energy deficiency in sport, or REDS, right? So if you're not eating enough, you're 4.5 times more likely to get injured, including bone stress injuries, or like stress reactions, stress fractures, whether in your shin, your hip. And I do see that, unfortunately, with people who are just not eating enough, they're underfueling. And then as you get older, you actually can develop things like osteoporosis, just weak bones from not just eating enough. You're like thinking, oh, I'm thin, right? Oh, sure, you may be thin, but you're not eating enough. And now as you get older, now you're at risk for fractures. If you just fall, you break a bone because your bones are so weak because you're not eating enough food. And carbs play a central role in just making sure you're meeting your energy needs, your calorie needs, right? So sometimes people are, oftentimes I see this in women, but men as well. If you're not eating enough, again, you're not going to be able to recover as well. You're going to be putting yourself for risk for injury, getting sick all the time. So you want to make sure that you're eating properly. And obviously from the performance standpoint, if you are not eating enough, you're not going to be able to perform as well. So this leads me to the first myth is that, you should do a low carb diet, right? There's a common myth like, I should do keto or low carb diet. So low carb diets might sound trendy, but for runners that actually kill your performance. Sure, there are people who can train in a fasted state or low carb state, but usually they're the exception, not the rule. And often they're just eating a lot more of like proteins and other things, and they've took years to adapt to this thing. It's not optimal, and it still catches up with them. I still recommend. I've tried experimented myself. I tried going on a keto diet years ago, and then sure, I lost some weight, but then I was sluggish. I could barely, what used to be an easy 8-minute per mile pace, started feeling like I could, like a hard pace, like I could barely hold that. I actually slowed down. I was now had to do like a 9 and 10-minute per mile pace just because, I just didn't have enough energy in my body and I was sluggish. Sure, I was thinner, but I wasn't able to sustain the paces that I wanted. So when I switched back to high carb, boom, my energy and pace came right back. I was able to run 730 paces, no problem, just by having enough carbs, right? So and the reason people lose weight a lot when they're on low carb diets is because for every pound of carbs, it holds like 3 parts water, right? So every gram of carbs is also like another like 3 grams or 3 parts water to it. So now you're losing water weight. When you think you're like, oh, I'm losing all this fat, you're actually just losing a bunch of water weight. You're just dehydrating yourself when you go low carb. So obviously you need to be hydrated. Are carbohydrates, it's in the word carbohydrates. So carbs help you hydrate your body. So that's why it's very important to have sufficient carbs especially when you're training for a marathon, you're training in the heat. Carbs is just going to help you hydrate properly. And then not doing so is just working against you, and you're often just losing water weight. You're actually not really losing true fat loss. When you see these people, dramatically lose a bunch of weight in a week, they're often just cutting out carbs and then just shedding a bunch of water. Then the minute they put the carbs back in, the water comes back in because, again, they were just dehydrated. Myth number 2, fruit has too much sugar. Fruit isn't your enemy. It's packed with fiber, antioxidants, and hydration. And guess what? It's one of the easiest ways to get natural carbs for recovery and energy, right? Fruits are carbs, right? And they help hydrate you. Sometimes people are like, oh, I need to rely on processed foods. I need to drink these sports drinks, these sodas and gels. I'm not saying you can't have gels and sports drinks, but they shouldn't be your main carbohydrate source, right? You shouldn't be throughout the day pounding Gatorades and sports drinks throughout the day when you could just have some fruit, make a fruit smoothie, right? Go for the non-processed stuff first, and then yes, if you need it during a race, a long run, that's fine. But fruit is your friend. You could also use fruits to fuel your races. You could get dried fruit, right? Sliced dried bananas, dried mangoes, raisins, so many different types of dried fruit that you could bring with you on a run, or even dates. Big fan of dates. Anyhow, many of my runners, they used to skip fruit and grab processed snacks instead. But then we serve, hey, can I at least commit to getting 2 servings of fruit a day, which is the recommendation. Just 2 servings of fruit a day. You could eat a little bit more, of course, if you need more. And then they noticed that they had a big difference in digestion, energy, and cravings, right? Because when you're just eating these processed, like for example, the Gatorades and the sports drinks, they improve your sugar levels, but then you have a quick crash afterwards because they don't have like fiber and other nutrients and minerals that your body needs to thrive. And fruit is jam packed of these nutrients that's missing in these processed foods. Myth number 3: brown rice is always better than white rice. So the difference between brown and white rice is usually just some fiber. Like brown rice has a little bit more fiber than white rice. But if you're eating a mix of different foods, right, rice, beans, lentils, and other types of food groups, oftentimes you can make up the fiber less if you had like white rice and beans, for example. And if you don't like brown rice, it's okay. Your body needs fuel, so not food guilt. So don't stress about like, oh, I have to avoid all white carbs, right? I have to avoid white rice. I have to avoid white potatoes. I have to avoid pasta. I have to go always whole wheat with everything. And that's not the case. You can have, again, you can have the white rice. You could have the potatoes. When I was a personal trainer, I had clients who would fear the white carbs, but as long as they trained properly and ate for the activity level, it really didn't matter too much. It wasn't a big difference between white rice or brown rice. Although the weight pretty much stayed the same if they did the right types of workout, fuel properly, they could still lose weight, run and lift, and do all these other things without having to worry about the type of rice or potato they're having. Uh, Myth number 4: I need to have gels on every run. Unless your run is longer than an hour, right? You probably don't need to have gels or a bunch of sports drinks, right? Focus on what you're eating before and after, like what you're eating during the day in general, right? If you're not eating enough to begin with and you're feeling like you need to fuel a 30-minute run, chances are you're just not eating enough. You're not eating enough 3 square meals, right? Or big enough meals like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? If you're only having coffee for breakfast and then like a small snack for lunch, and then you're like ravenous, you need to be fueling on your workout, that's under an hour, chances are you're just not eating enough. So the simple fix for that is, again, just eat enough meals, eat bigger meals. If you need a snack, have some snacks, but don't feel that you have to eat gels. Usually gels and sports drinks during workouts is for things that are over 90 minutes, right? So long runs, usually 90 minutes to 2 hours is usually the time. Like, okay, now you need to start having gels and sports drinks every hour. That, let's say you're doing a 3 hour long type of like a long run event, maybe training for a marathon, you're out there for 3 hours. So after the first hour and a half, then okay, let's start having the gels, the sports drinks, etc. But during the first hour or so, you shouldn't really need to be relying on gels. Or if your workouts are an hour or less, again, you shouldn't be relying on gels or sports drinks. Myth number 5: I can only refuel right after my run. Yes, refueling is important. Within, again, some dietitians or sport experts, sport nutritionists have different recommendations. They say within 30 minutes, within an hour. But the truth is, it could be a 2 hour gap, right? It could be 2 hours. Within, you have like a good 2 hour window where it's a good window to refuel because your body's going to store that as glycogen. Glycogen is stored in your muscle tissue, right? So you have muscles all over your body. So the glycogen is going to be stored there instead of like stored as fat, which is that good window to have your carbohydrates. But it doesn't have to be immediately after, right? If you're not that hungry, you could have something like a little smoothie or chocolate milk even, or if you're plant-based chocolate milk. And then you could eat a full meal like an hour or two later, right? You don't have to stress out too much about it, but within 2 hours, should eat something. Again, it doesn't even have to be big. It could be a couple fruit right after your run. But you don't have to stress about like, oh my God, it's 30 minutes. I haven't eaten anything. I'm going to freak out. No, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, if you're doing a long run, you should be having your fuels with you so you have good energy and stuff. But at the same token, again, there's a window of opportunity there. So, how many carbs do marathon runners need? So, you want about 3 to 4 grams of carbs per pound of body weight, or in kilograms, that's 6.5 to 9 grams per kilogram. So, if you weigh 100 pounds, that's 300 to 400 grams per day. If you're 150 pounds, 450 to 600 grams of carbs per day. And if you're 200 pounds, that's 600 to 800 grams of carbs per day. So, for a 150-pound runner, that's about 18 to 24 cupped handfuls of carbs per day. So, if you take a cupped handful, and you say serving a carb would fit in your like think of like a piece of fruit or a cupped handful of rice or of oatmeal or something or beans, right? That's about 25 grams of carbs. So then imagine having about maybe 4 cupped handfuls if you're that 150-pound runner, and then having like maybe 4 meals, right? 4 to 5, like 4 meals a day or something, or even 3 big meals. Now you're gonna have to spread out that 18 to 24 cupped handfuls of rice between those different meals. And then obviously, if you're on a long run, you could have some carbs during a long run as well. So, what kind of carbs should you eat? So, again, I don't want you to avoid, um, have this all or nothing mentality. But in general, you should try to eat whole processed foods, non-processed foods, excuse me, whole foods about 80% of the time. Think about fruits, oats, beans, lentils, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potatoes, whole grain breads, wraps, wild rice, barley, farro. And then about 10, maybe 20% or less of the time, it's okay to have these sports drinks, gels, sugary snacks, right? You could save that for your long training runs, pretzels, Pop Tarts, cereal bars, sweetened milks. This is where you're having the chocolate milk after the run. That's okay. Sports drinks, but you shouldn't be like pounding sports drinks throughout the day, right? You should be throughout the day eating the fruits, the veggies, the whole non-processed foods. But again, during the workout, within that workout window, it's okay to have the sports drinks and the gels, even a donut if you really want a donut. If you had like a 2 hour long run, it's okay to have that one donut. But again, you shouldn't be relying on these sugary, sweet carb type foods throughout they shouldn't be your main staple, is what I'm saying here. So I hope this opened your eyes about fueling and how fueling can help benefit you in the right way to incorporate carbs for you as a runner. Because nutrition could be the number one thing that's holding you back from hitting your PRs, especially for marathon runners. So if you want better recovery and pain-free training, check out my free training link below to learn how to run strong, fuel smart, and stay injury-free.